Lavender Ann Davy was born on the 8th of April 1932 in a small house in Bishops Waltham, Hampshire, to Esmond and Vera Gwatkin.
Over the next 82 years, she lived just about as full a life as the laws of physics will allow.
An only child, her early years were rarely lonely. She loved the company of other children, so was never happier than when being bundled off to boarding school.
One suspects that she viewed her classmates as her first big project, and on arrival thought to herself, these girls need organising.
Unfortunately for teachers at the various learning academies she attended, she wasn't necessarily leading the girls in the direction they would have chosen.
Midnight feasts were her speciality, during which she would regale the girls with her fictional horror stories.
These tales so frightened the other girls that none of them would be able to sleep after the feasts and would start nodding off in classes the next day. She had discovered the joy of having an audience.
Her idyllic school days were set against the background of the Second World War.
With her family home in London, she was an early evacuee.
Ironically, she was relocated to the countryside just long enough for her to see out the phony war and return to live in London just as the Blitz started.
She went on to experience firsthand the impact of falling bombs and the terror of the unpredictable German doodlebugs. She even received her own war wound after being thrown off her bicycle by the explosion from a V-1 rocket.
Both her parents were heavily involved in the war effort.
Her mother, Vera, was an air raid warden and ration officer, and her father landed in France on D-Day +3 as a tank gunner.
The war years toughened Lavender as a person and also served to make her fiercely patriotic for the rest of her days.
Her young adult years were shaped by two major influences: the Christian Science Church, of which her family were members, and her love of performing.
The church philosophy shaped her no-nonsense approach and supplied her social life. She attended many parties run by it.
It was halfway through one such party that she answered a knock on the door and met a shy young man named Hugh, who apologised for being late. This wasn't the last time she would hear these words from him.
In the 1950s, her life really started to get into gear. Her love of acting took her to drama school and then on to repertory, where she racked up her acting hours, performing around the country.
She worked in various capacities, including a stint assisting a young David Attenborough. She loved the high energy of a fledgling industry and looked set for a career in broadcasting, but the draw of that other young man was greater.
Lavender and Hugh were married in 1955, a union that was to last just shy of 60 years.
Lavender loved children and had 6 of them. She would have liked more.
Such were her energy levels that focusing on raising them was only part of her life.
During the late 50s and early 60s, she was involved with civil defence.
In the mid-60s, the family moved to Wickham, Hampshire, where Hugh bought and developed Wickham Garage.
Lavender ran the company books, but still found time to integrate her family and herself into the local community.
She was a member of the parish council, got involved in St Nicholas's Church, and revisited her love of performing by becoming a key member of Wickham Amateur Dramatic Society as an actor and producer.
The Davy household of that era was rarely a dull one.
At any given time, the house was full of energetic children, various friends and acquaintances, innumerable pets, including dogs, cats, tortoises, guinea pigs, rabbits, horses, budgerigars, and always at the centre of this chaos, directing operations, would be Lavender, her arms full of small children, business contracts, scripts, and cooking utensils.
In the mid-70s, Wickham Garage fell victim to the recession that blighted the country.
By that time, 3 of her children were being educated at Daunce's, and the decision was made to move the children to Wiltshire so that their education could be continued.
She quickly grew to love her new life and once again wasted no time integrating herself into the local community.
Her Daunce's connection was solidified when she joined the Choral Society. Later, she would end up working at and then running the school sports shop.
She quickly joined the Lavington Amateur Dramatic Society, where again she acted and produced many a production.
She regularly opened her house and garden to allow children's plays to be formed and invited cast and audience to picnic and use the swimming pool afterwards.
She was a carol singer, a social secretary, a fundraiser, a lunch organiser, a prolific party host, and by common consent, a force of nature.
It seemed there was hardly an activity in the village that didn't in some way involve Lavender.
but it was probably All Saints Church where Lavender focused most of her efforts. A keen chorister, she was to take on the role of choir mistress, and she fully immersed herself in the role for 30 plus years.
The swan song on Good Friday, when she conducted the choir in a performance of Fauré's Requiem, was a fitting finale.
Lavender was a sun lover, especially when it shone in Cornwall.
She was rarely happier than when surrounded by her family in her Travone Bay retreat.
She loved Cornish clotted cream and Cornish pasties and bracing winter cliff top walks.
To the end of her days, she loved to surf.
She was proud of her family. Her 6 children produced 15 grandchildren and a great-granddaughter, and was greatly looking forward to the second, due in a few months.
And then there was Hugh, his quiet personality dovetailing perfectly with her dynamic, outgoing character. They were yin and yang.
In 60 years they were rarely apart. As a couple they took on and met many challenges. Not that they were above exchanging banter or the occasional practical joke.
In recent years, the two enjoyed watching television together. University Challenge was a favourite.
But choir practice sometimes got in the way.
So Hugh would be tasked with recording the programme so that they could enjoy it together on her return.
Hugh always impressed her with the breadth and depth of his knowledge. He would correctly yell out answers to some of the most difficult questions.
It transpired that Hugh liked the programme so much that he watched every episode twice. The recorded episode that they watched together, but also a little earlier the live episode which he watched as it was recorded.
We are devastated by the way Lavender exited stage left so suddenly.
We all felt she had a couple more acts up her sleeve.
She had such strength and personality that it is hard for many of us to envisage a world without her.
But she would not want us to spend too much time mourning her passing.
She believed life was for living. She certainly lived hers to the full, and we were all beneficiaries.
For that,
We thank her.
For that, we thank her.
We love you, Mum.
For years a fairy queen I've been. For years I foiled the demon king. But alas, I'm getting on, the years have flown somehow, and I feel that fairy snowdrop isn't wanted now. Nobody loves a fairy when she's 40. Nobody loves a fairy when she's old. She may still have a magic power, but that is not enough. They like their bits of magic from a younger bit of stuff. When once your silver star has lost its glitter, and your tinsel looks like rust instead of gold, your fairy days are ending when your wonder started bending. No one loves a fairy when she's old. 'Twas I who helped Aladdin find a cave that wasn't there. 'Twas I who made Wick Dickinson turn round and then Lord Mayor. I've been a spirit of the flowers and fairy daffodil. I've been a fairy of the wind, I suffer from it still. In satin-covered ballet shoes, I toe dance through the glen, beloved by all the children and run after by the men. No one could touch me at Miss Blitz were all the rage, until the night woodman left his chopper on the stage. What a mess! Nobody loves a fairy when she's 40. Nobody loves a fairy when she's old. She may still have a magic power, but that is not enough. They like their bits of magic from a younger bit of stuff. When you can't cast a spell without it spilling, and a fairy tale for years you